Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm going to continue working on this issue of adding more information when you get an expectation exception. So I basically copy and pasted this method, which I just did a quick refactoring. I changed all these names to, instead of saying default value, saying value, because we're getting a value here in both places. So the thing I need to do right now is do a little bit of formatting with enums and getting something that, again, that just needs to be close. The string I get for the member name looks a little odd, but it gives you a lot of information to say this is the member that failed. In this case, it doesn't have to be perfect in terms of like a fully qualified name or whatever, but it just needs to be close. So I did some work last night in Sharp Lab, and I was watching a streamer last night, just having fun, and at times it was getting a little boring, so I would go off and do this stuff. And what I figured out is basically if you just pass in a value, it seems like unless console write line is doing something specific here with enums, which, you know, now that I say this, I don't think it does. Can you, come on, pull char here, string. No, it doesn't seem like it does anything specific with an enum. So hopefully it just gives you the value. So that gives you this. Getting the full name of the type gives you this. Yeah. Jeez, come on, Sharp Lab. Then getting the name would also get you the name of it as well. If you get a value, if somebody gave an invalid value, you basically get null. I checked that this is actually get name would return null. So I think I've got pretty much everything I need. So what it can do is we'll say var full name is equal to, well, we'll say self type is equal to self. Get type. If it's an enum, we know it's going to be not null. And then we say var self name is equal to enum. Now I'm going to say get name here, and the reason why is because I want to see if it's null or not null. Because if it's null, then I'll actually give whatever the numerical or whatever the value is of the enum and basically show that it needs to be casted to that. And that's what that is. So what I want is something like self type full name. And, well, var self value. Yeah, kind of like that. If self name is not null, then what we're going to do is something here. Otherwise, we're going to do something here. And then we'll just pass that there. I realize this is going to break a lot of tests because everywhere where I'm saying throw an expectation exception, it's now going to suddenly get all the values of the member. And so, yeah, those are just going to break. But as long as it works the way I expect it to, that's really what matters. If it's not null, what we want is self type dot full name dot self name. And then if it is null, then what we want to do is basically say we're acting like we're going to cast a value here of self to self type full name. There. So I think that should do what we're looking for. So if you had like a value of like here 22, what that's going to show is a cast to a bunch of stuff values to 22 of 22. So that at least gives you a hint that you're giving an enumeration value that isn't what is in the enum. The arrays will come to next. Now, an array, a list, all of these I believe, derived from my collection. I believe that's like the base interface of really anything that is a list of stuff. I could be wrong on that, though. I could be wrong on that. For example, if I had a span of int, what does that derive from? A span. So it can be enumerated, it can be indexed, but that's it. So if we actually would get, oh, that's cool. They put I'll zoom in on that. They put a strike through the name because it's obsolete. So they added that in the editor. That's a nice little hint that you shouldn't use that. So yeah, it doesn't derive from iCollection. And the more I think about this would be kind of nice, but it'd be a fair amount of work. And this is an exceptional case. Do I really care to get this detailed about an array or other types that I could now start doing custom formatting of the value? You know, because what happens if you gave me a span? What happens if you give me, like, I'm assuming an immutable array. Like if I look at that, I would imagine that derives from my list, which those derive from my collection. I would imagine a frozen set would also derive from, well, it derives from iSet, and iSet derives from iCollection, and iCollection is that. This is where I have the battle in my head. Do I fight the powers that be? Because array is just iCollection. It's not generic. And again, what I was talking about before is, I think it just gives you back the, like if I say data is equal to new int, and then I say print that out, I bet it's just going to say like array or something like that. Yeah, it's a system in 32, and that's all it gives you. It doesn't give you any indication of the data. It doesn't give you any indication of the size. I guess the one thing I could do is say if it's iCollection, put the name of it there, but then also, like, I could say here, I could say if it's a span, yeah, that's problematic because we don't know what the T is. So we can't do, we have no idea if, well, we can't do that. Well, the thing is, I could do iCollection of C and then do something like this where, did I hit the, yeah. I could say C dot toString, comma, count is equal to C dot. At least that way you at least get an idea as to how many values you passed in. And maybe that's a little bit of a hint, like if you're expecting to get 3 and you got 5 or something. I don't know. But that's good enough for this. So again, this is going to break a lot of code, but I could do a lot of copy pasta here to see if this works with get default value. But what I really want to do is, let's do this. Format value. We don't need to do this. We just need to say that value dot format value is equal to that. Do an expression bodied. And what does this do? Yeah, it fails. Why does it fail? Oh yeah, because it's a string within a string. Is that really what we want to do? It is a string. Do we really need to put, because I get why I'm doing it down here this way, because I'm putting like code within code. In this case, I'm just getting the value back. Like in a lot of these things, the more I'm looking at it, do I really care about the fact that it's int max value or UN or long or anything like that. I really don't. I could say here, else if self is I collection, I could say this, return that, yeah. Okay. And then I could say else if self is null, I could say return null, else just return self.toString and let the chips fall where they may. So in this, I closed the tests. So this would now pass because we're just saying show 22. Yeah, and that's what would be put in the string. And the problem with testing this is I don't think you can put an array. Well, I have less cases here, right? Format, not collection null. We could just format value. So if I had here 33, which that works, is equal to 33. Only test method should be, again, this bit me at work. We had a test that had test cases, but then we did some changes and realized we don't need test cases anymore. So I took those off, and then I was trying to run the test, and I went, wait a minute, it's not running. And I started going down a little bit of a, not panic path, but I'm like, why isn't this running? And I finally saw, we took test case off. And we didn't put test on there, so it didn't run. That's why. And that passes. Okay, so we can have public enum object extension values. We don't care. We can say none, some, all. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we could have because of that, format enum value. We could say object extension values, some format value is equal to, and what this should be is, it's going to have all the namespace stuff in there as well. So we got to go grab that. Okay, so we'll do that. Put that in here and format enum value. So we're going to cast 22 to that. And what we should see when value is incorrect, what we should have is all of this as showing a cast of that. Yep, perfect. So we've got that. And now we can do a collection. We could also we got to do null and we got to do a collection. Format null. So we'll say null. Yeah, I know it doesn't work. Null as, it could be string. It doesn't matter. This should say null. And then the final one is a collection. You can say new int 1, 2, 3 format value. This should be, what did it do? System.int 32 array count is equal to 3. Okay, so we've got all that. Let me make a quick commit here. Have tests around value formatting. Okay. Now what I want to do is start adding in the spot where we actually say throw no expectation exception. Whoops. Don't send my mouse flying. So yeah, all these places that do this. So you have no handlers match for that. What I started wondering is, well, if it's an indexer, you have parameters. If you have a method that the provided handler does not match, why am I one-offing that? Build method validation handler, no parameters. Yeah, like why is that a one-off? What I want to have is kind of a helper method to say generate expectation exception text, code, however you want to say it. And then I could just throw that in here. And if you want to have different text here, that's fine. So you could give the text, you could give the number of parameters, and then you just plop that in here. And that code would then put in the multi-line string or single line, because you might have something that doesn't have any parameters. And then we could generalize that in one spot and not have that all over the place. I mean, this is just throw if was interesting. That's something different. It's these that I care about. No handlers are found. No handlers match. I know there's a difference. I can't remember. I think this is, okay. Sorry, it took a second to get my head. The second one is, what happens in the code here is we're going to see if you try to actually set any handlers first. Now, if you didn't, it falls all the way down to this and says we didn't find any. This one is saying none of them matched, and that's different. This is basically saying you gave us handlers, you gave us expectations, but none of them matched. This is saying we didn't find any for this. And in this case, it's almost arguable that you don't give any of the parameters because there's no point. But the wording here is a little, it's not clear enough. Like this is saying you didn't match. No handlers were provided. I think that's probably a better thing. So hold on. Change no handlers found to no handlers were provided. And in that case, there's no need to format parameter values. Okay. So in that case, we wouldn't use this specialized thing that I'm making. But in the case where we're trying to match, create an extension method for the case, and reuse that everywhere. And before I end this episode, I want to go back to this thing. This is a name value builder. Is that ever? Yeah, it is. And I think it's only in the case for generics. I wish it was. Is there a way to go back? Go to the previous location in the list. No, I want to go back to the search I just did. Well, I can do that. Oh, no, I don't want to do that there. I want to do it here. Because I think this is in the case where it's generic. This is in the case where it's generic. And I'm not sure why. Like, why would I do this any different? Oh, well, no. Well, it's only when I'm doing it generically. And I was thinking, maybe is this the case where it's no parameters? This is the void builder, this is the value builder, and it is when there's no parameters. Okay. I'm going to have to, I know I have a reason for doing this. I just can't remember what it is. So I'm assuming that, well, I get why they say the provided handler, because, and in this case, I would just skip this. This would be the case where I don't have to handle it because there are literally no parameters. So in the other cases, I do want to do this. This is a special case because the only way that you could set to do multiple expectations is if you actually had parameters. If you don't have parameters, you can set multiple, but there's really only going to be one, because you can't have more than, it doesn't make logical sense to have more than one. with the way the rocks works. So that's why I think I'm doing this. But why I'm putting this in here to say if it's a generic method, we'll cast the handler to ensure the general handler type is of the closed generic handler type. Yes, because this is when you have a method itself is generic. You don't know until runtime what they're passing in. Like the method is defined as do of t. So you can't close it. You have to wait until they actually call it, and then they say do of string. And so then whatever the expectation is, you're assuming that they're giving you something that is of a string. If it isn't, it's going to fail the cast. Well, that's why I do an if here. So to make sure that it's, and okay, now it finally dawned on me. The reason why I do this is because I'm putting it, an if around this. And if the one expectation that you have doesn't pass a cast, the provided handler does not match for this. So, okay, now I get it. So in the next episode, I will actually go through and create this helper and see if it works the way I expect it. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. Please subscribe if you haven't before. I'll see you in the next episode.